Good morning. I'm very glad to stand here in the presence of so many good cyber people who are keeping internet and our IT systems alive and kicking so that our functions in society can go on. My presentation about Ukraine today is taking you to the different route, out of server rooms, out of your usual maybe comfort zone of talking about technical features of different cyber vulnerabilities, to a more strategic context, how the modern warfare is waged. I think many of you probably might be offered a job in the defense industry, or probably, hopefully not, but if war will break out in any of your countries where you come from, also in military or intelligence. And therefore, this strategic context, how technology is defining the success of the battlefield, is, I think, something what we have learned in Ukraine. And I'm going to walk you through some of the features which are maybe generic, how technology defines warfare, but then also specific to Ukraine. I'll start with the general tech superiority before going to the Ukraine lessons, because the tech superiority is something which we know defines all the modern conflicts, not just Ukraine, but it can be transferred to anywhere else. And I give you some maybe major features, what to keep in mind from your perspective as cyber experts, how you are going to secure this multi-domain battlefield. I'm trying to see what kind of picture now is there for you. Yes, it's the right one. What we are seeing in Ukraine specifically is that there is a small nation that was attacked by overwhelming enemy. The motivation of the overwhelming enemy is not great to have success on the battlefield. But this nation that is attacked is very small and has to come up with solutions to keep itself alive. So how they do it? They do it with asymmetric effects. Asymmetry, the tech innovation that Ukraine has shown is amazing, and you know it. And I have had the privilege to sit together with very young people from Ukraine and help them not to develop the applications, because I am not a technical person, but more policy strategic person. But I see the innovation drive which those young teams are having. And some of them have been doing this for 10 years, and now they are only 32. So all the youth, they have been sitting in the basement of the Ministry of Defense, developing Delta, Avengers, or other applications to fight overwhelming enemy, and successfully. So this is amazing. So what we see in Ukraine and everywhere else, it's technology as a key enabler for all conventional capabilities. But of course, it's not just technology. It's also mindset, skills, the strategy of the commanders, and combination of applying everything what Ukrainians have in order to fight. Technology has a very strategic role, but you cannot, of course, fight only with the technology. You also have to have different other features when you are in the modern warfare. So first, what you need to have is the multi-domain dominance. Multi-domain dominance is difficult to gain when you are not that rich, large nation, as most of our nations in Europe are actually. Maybe except for this nation we are currently, UK that has very advanced military capabilities, and France and some others. Most of our nations here are small, not very well resourced. Militaries are pretty old. Our young tech communities certainly are there, but these are not always in the governmental circles or in the military circles. And in this situation now, if we had war in Europe, we need to face the same. How we are able to build that digital layer and infrastructure to fight the multi-domain warfare and have the dominance fueled by the tech superiority. So the digital backbone for multi-domain dominance is key. In Ukraine, interestingly, we see all different layers of tech at the same time applied. So there is high tech. The plane is F-35. In Ukraine, we don't have F-35, we have F-16s now, which are donated by other countries. And Gripens and some other planes donated by European nations as well. Then we have MeTech. It was very clearly yesterday explained how the drones are low-tech, but quite malicious, right? Then you have low-tech, and then you have no-tech at the same time. Everything at the same time. You still need to go to the trenches if you would like to advance on the battlefield. And Russians are on other trenches on the other side. So it's a First World War trench war, Second World War maneuver war, and Third World War, which we haven't seen yet, high-tech war at the same time in Ukraine happening. This F-35 picture here also gives you the idea how interconnected and how digital everything which is used in modern warfare right now is. F-35, of course, is a very good example because it also has advanced radar targeting systems and sensors in it. And command and control is embedded. And this embedded technology that military is using is not your usual off-the-shelf, of course, technology. So it's a very specific technology that only people with military background and with the clearance can access. I am, of course, sure that these systems are built by humans too and are hackable. So, but I will not advise you to hack the F-35 or you get into the trouble with Lockheed Martin and the US government. But I think what we see in terms of the high-tech warfare in Ukraine is more about communications, satellite communications, the tactical communications, how we are able to make sure that the sensors and the radar systems and surveillance works. And this kind of secure tactical networks and the radio networks are also a big priority for us, the nations who are helping Ukraine. Interestingly, what Ukraine has done as well, in addition to what all other countries in the world have, is that they now have unmanned command, unmanned systems command. So you have heard about cyber commands, you have heard about some other commands, space commands, but unmanned systems command is something new. And the usage of unmanned systems has been helping Ukrainians to fight this unjust war. And it's not just drones. Increasingly, you see the unmanned general vehicles on the ground. And these are used for reconnaissance, also for explosive disposal, and also for evacuation of the wounded. Because one of the features of this high-tech, low-tech, and non-tech warfare at the same time is that you have less skilled people on the defensive side on the battlefield, but you have more wounded people. And how you quickly retrieve your wounded is a big question. You should probably know the fact that Russians are not evacuating wounded, and they are not evacuating their dead. But Ukrainians are, and therefore they also need the, or Russians are, but in lesser extent. And Ukrainians are using the unmanned equipment in order to do it, otherwise every man counts, of course, for Ukrainian side, and they are fighting this war as humans. We have seen lots of news and information about drones in the air, but there are also the sea drones. The sea drones have been very successful in the Black Sea, And most of the Ukraine advances on the Black Sea have done with unmanned capabilities. So maybe I will give you some statistics. Ukraine uses different unmanned capabilities to compensate the lack of air power also. If Ukraine had as many planes as maybe UK or France, then the war would look different. So the unprecedented usage of drones and unmanned capabilities comes from the fact that Ukraine does not have the air power and does not have enough ammunition and does not have enough of conventional warfare in order to fight that very long contact line, which is over 1,000 kilometers. So Ukraine is destroying, because of this unmanned capabilities, 1,000 vehicles per month. It has destroyed up to 30 ships. And of course, you see this news how the drones are attacking different Russian infrastructure related to shadow fleet, related to oil deposits and so on. And reconnaissance purposes certainly are important when the drones are used. And one of the big technical capabilities that has been now launched and is now well working is the blue force tracking of drones and drone ID. Because at some point there were drones on the battlefield on the both sides, like the drone walls on the both sides, and this was a challenge for Ukrainians and also for the Russians. So the unmanned capabilities certainly need a lot of input from the signal intelligence side, and, because the GPS or the GPS alternatives are important in order to understand where those capabilities are at any given time. So the satellite picture, of course, is not Ukrainian. It is offered by the allies and remains to be a key for this war. And then as a new element, not that new, of course, but very dominant element in Ukraine is electronic warfare. The electronic warfare capabilities that Russia has have been honed since the end of the Second World War. European nations are not that good at electronic warfare. Few European nations have that kind of capabilities. They are now developing those capabilities because it's not just in Ukraine where electronic warfare is used, it's also used in our border states, like in Estonia, with the GPS jamming, where the civilian planes had to land because the radars couldn't work and GPS didn't work. Finnair plane had to turn back at some point because couldn't come to Estonia from Finland. And things like this happen in our part of the world all the time. The hybrid warfare is going on in all Europe, as you know. But in Ukraine, this has certainly affected how the battles are fought, because when you are in the contact line and you have your equipment, you have your drones, your electronic communication, everything, if there is jamming on the other side, then you are blind. So then you have made a mistake of not listening to your own Ukrainian colleagues and your technical command to tell you, don't go there, because Russians are jamming that area. So Ukrainians know that without technology and without back office telling where to go, where not to go, is this drone good, is this drone, enemy drone, they have that picture real time, all the time, because of the Delta system. But I come back to Delta. Electronic warfare is a new feature, which is a very important feature in this war because of the tech application is pervasive at every sequence of the front line. And in the Ramstein coalition, or Ukraine Defense Contact Group, where we are working to help Ukraine, now we have even electronic warfare sub-capability coalition that is led by Germany. So we are building this capability slowly but surely also in continental Europe. So I am now wrapping up this my overall talk about how tech pervasive the modern battlefield is, and going into more data centers, AI, and other features that the commander should know about when entering the battlefield. So all this tech-powered warfare and multi-domain dominance needs to be secure and resilient against disruptions in all domains, in air, in sea, all the warfighting domains, space, cyberspace. And it has been sometimes criticized that the Ukrainians are not able to keep the cybersecurity to the highest standards in the fast-moving military operations. So they try to do it, but certainly this is difficult to secure all that at the same time. So how can we help them on what they have been doing and what they shall still do? So we are helping them to build the IT architecture that helps to provide the technology which they need. So we, as the Collective West, have been helping them to use different cloud solutions. We are helping them to build the data centers, what they need themselves. We help them with different capabilities and training on cyber. We help them with actual military equipment and ammunition. But important thing to remember is that they are using the solutions which they have done themselves. These solutions which they are using are not bought from big tech companies, but they are locally made Ukrainian solutions. So the first, maybe important, not solution, but application that they are running on the Delta system is artificial intelligence solution called Avengers. So the artificial intelligence certainly has revolutionizing the warfare, providing tools for strategic planning and operational execution. It also enhances decision-making because AI can analyze vast amounts of data to improve decision-making. It provides efficiency for operational leaders. The operational efficiency by automation and optimizing the different solutions is important. Of course, there are ethical considerations. And the use of AI in warfare, in case of Ukraine, is not independent and automatic. It is AI helping humans to make those decisions. The Avenger systems that the Ukrainians have built is integrated with their command and control systems. And they are using this military data set and AI co-pilot to identify the targets, but the final decision is with the humans. AI is now helping to identify 70% of targets. And it takes, as average, 2 seconds to identify. Sometimes AI is hallucinating and saying that something which is not a really military target is military target, and humans need to be in the loop there. So humans need to be in the loop everywhere, because it's not just drones, AI systems, or those high-tech weapon systems that are fighting the war. It's always the humans. And there are the new ways how this war is done in Ukraine and what we have learned for strategy and leadership. First of all, what we see is that defensive side is driving the strategy. Because the great power army on the other side is not that motivated. And leaders on the defensive side are deciding and driving the conditions and terms for this conflict. The second lesson, ability to adapt, to use the technology, which we just are now talking about. But the third lesson, also a bit technology related, but not only, is the logistics. In modern warfare, logistics is becoming even more important. Ukraine has digitalized its logistical systems. There is a logistical app-like system for almost everything, and also for the mobilization and the medical information. There is now the digital system which they have developed. The fourth leadership lesson is the leadership. The leadership is important everywhere, but in the modern warfare even more so, because the good commander knows how to keep the soldiers alive and knows how to use the tech to help to keep their troops alive. There are some very interesting new movies about the warfare as it is in the trenches with the help of drones and all the Delta and everything. I think the title in English is 2,000 meters until Avdiivka. And the Oscar winner from the last year, who did 20 days in Mariupol, has done a new movie, which is shot at the front line with soldier cameras. And it gives you the pretty good picture how this is actually looking from the inside. And it also shows that there is a talented leader who knows what to do and who will not get shot, and who is always coordinating with the technological capabilities and keeps the troops alive. So technology is your friend on the front line, because it keeps you alive if you know how to use it, which also means that all the commanders need to know basic skills. And usage of the technology. Ukrainian-made Delta is the major platform which did not exist before this war, and which was developed by Ukrainians. Before the second invasion, they started to develop it already in 2015-16, after the first invasion. The first invasion, or the war itself, started in 2014, when the Russians took over Crimea and entered Donbas, or eastern Ukraine region. And there is the Innovation Center in the Ministry of Defense, which is developing different technical solutions for the battlefield usage. And Delta has been emerging as a major intelligence, surveillance, target acquisition, and reconnaissance tool for the Ukrainians, which is homemade. It can be opened on your mobile phone with the right credentials. You can use it on your own device too. Not all the features, but some features. And it is very flexible. People in this community might say that it's very difficult to ensure its cybersecurity, and we know that this is difficult, but it is getting better in terms of cyber risk as well. What they are doing with Delta is quite radical. There are some terms which Ukrainians themselves are using. One of those terms would be Uberization of warfare. What is Uberization of warfare? Once they detect the enemy, either drone or vehicle or troops, then they will order the fire. And they will order the fire either if it's artillery fire, which is nearby and can shoot to that direction, they give the coordinates. If artillery is not nearby, then they order the drone with the explosive. And this helps the troops to clear the way and go forward, or fight the targets that are around in your battlefield there. Then they have calculated that with the usage of Delta, they have been able to destroy 22 billion value of enemy equipment. And I don't like to talk about human casualties in this war, but it is inevitable that one has to talk about this. And it's probably over 1 million enemy fighters also eliminated because of the usage of the tech platform like Delta. Ukrainian losses have been much less. The real numbers are difficult to retract, but the ratio would be 1 Ukrainian to 7 Russians, as most people are observing. So the Delta system has now also different offsprings of the similar digital systems which are attached to Delta and that you can use. You can switch those on your own device, on the mobile phone or the small laptops that commanders have. And this flexibility of using Delta has been helping them. Cybersecurity of Delta has been a challenge since the beginning. We have been helping a lot with our coalition activities to cyber secure everything that Ukraine does, but mostly this battlefield platform. Of course, it is challenging because every time the soldier is killed, his radio and laptop or whatever he's using on the battlefield is confiscated by the enemy, and then they will switch it off quickly from the system when they see that this region has been taken over by Russians, and there is no possibility to access anymore the Delta, but things happen in the battlefield that you don't know. So it is a challenge, and Ukrainians are trying to very fast always to adapt to this cybersecurity challenges of keeping this battlefield system secure. There is one more lesson, which is the personalization of warfare. As I talked about how the soldier is using Delta to order the fire, to see where everybody is, to see where the enemy is. So the soldiers on the battlefield are increasingly feeling very much alone. During the other wars that humankind has had, it has been a group effort. You go to the front line with the groups, as you have seen in the movies, you are operating in small groups, in mid-sized groups. Here, you are increasingly alone with your tech gear, with a smaller number of your colleagues doing the advance. So, and you are alone on the battlefield, drones are chasing you. You know that if you step to the wrong side, the electronic warfare capabilities might kick in and then you will lose your sight. So you have to be very clever as a human on that battlefield. And that's why there are those psychological impacts because the war is like a game. So what we are also talking in relation to Ukraine war is the gamification of warfare. And sometimes the first-person view drone operators, of course, they are not in direct contact. They are somewhere in Kiev in the unmanned command center and just doing the drone warfare from there. The ongoing connectivity and the mostly tech usage on the battlefield also require new competencies from the soldiers and from commanders. And commanders who are ensuring survival rates for the soldiers probably are needed, like this kind of future commanders. So, and now we finally come to the cyber stuff and civilian infrastructure cyber lessons. Since I've been mostly working with the Ministry of Defense and military of Ukraine, so I'm quickly now going over on the civilian side what we have learned in more strategic terms with the Western different companies and Western governments also helping, of course, Ukraine in this field. But what are the strategic lessons? Of course, you have heard it and you know it, and maybe you did it yourself, that before the second invasion, Ukraine knew that the second invasion is coming and was asking the hyperscalers to move data to the cloud. So this has helped to save a lot of Ukraine government data. Amazon, Microsoft, and Google all helped them to move lots of governmental and other data to the cloud. Now they are slowly moving something back. And as most militaries are doing now, the hybrid cloud with some of the private on-site cloud and some of the hyperscalers cloud, but the data is backed anyway. So what also the Ukrainians did was preparing for the cyber battlefield. That's why we didn't have major cyber effect happening, because the defense was very good. And probably you know it better than I do, how all this community in Ukraine and in most of the intelligence services and militaries of the Western countries was helping them before the second invasion in 22. The information campaign and disinformation campaign that the Russians applied was significant. Ukrainians had busted many servers that Russian trolls were using before the second invasion. This kind of creating the favorable conditions for cyberspace to be running in the beginning of second invasion was a key for them. The Vipers were also quickly removed from the networks, and the networks were restored. The train network, the emergency network in Ukraine in the beginning of the conflict, and also the civilian telecom network. So all the sectors had to be mobilized, and it is major effort from the government side to mobilize all the sectors before the known coming invasion, because this is not technology, it's people. This is difficult to mobilize all the people in all different sectors in your country, which is 50 million country, roughly, you know, the big European country. And Ukrainians have tried to do it, and therefore the cyber effects did not affect them too much in the beginning of the second invasion in 22. The detection systems were in place, and the speed was guaranteed. When they found something, they reacted very quickly. So the international partnerships and international coalitions helping Ukraine have been very important, both government and private sector. And maybe you are working in some of those private sector companies which actually help them. Thank you for this. The international trusted partnerships, again, have to be there in place before the war starts. And this is what Ukrainians were able to do. They could organize that kind of partnerships and support from NATO nations, from different allies, from different companies, which really has kept them going. What we are doing as governments to help Ukraine, in addition to a huge help that the private sector already has given them. So what we saw in the beginning when the conflict started, or the war started, was influx of great help from major tech companies in the world. The US tech sector assistance, people from UK, France, Germany, and everywhere in Europe also helped, was significant. But this initial enthusiasm, what we saw, I'm not saying it's not there anymore, but all the big tech companies are sending us the bills now and ask who is going to pay for it. So the Western governments pick up the bill now for those services. Some of the tech companies are still footing their own bills, but increasingly they are asking the services to be remunerated, even if it's Ukraine. So roughly a year after the second invasion started, 2 governmental mechanisms have been set up to help Ukraine. One is the Ramstein or Ukraine Defense Contact Group IT Coalition, where I am a chair of the steering group as an Estonian co-lead. And we have been providing software and hardware in a value of 1.3 billion euros. There is also the civilian mechanism, and we only help the military. We help with satellite communication, tactical communication, data centers, also the end-user equipment and some cyber capabilities. There is also the civilian mechanism by the governments, which is the Tallinn mechanism, where they are retrieving funds from development assistance, and they help the civilian side of infrastructure, cyber infrastructure protection. The US tech sector has done a great job in the beginning of the war with the CDAC, with the Cyber Defense Assistance Collective, which was partly voluntary and partly paid by the US government. So we all tried to help as much as we could, and as the European governments now are picking up most of the bills helping Ukraine, we should be going on. And this 1.3 billion is a very small number in military world, but in our cyber world, I think is a good number to be proud of. We have to keep it up, and we have to ensure that we are able to help Ukraine also in coming years, because we have plans for 3 and 5 and 10 years to help them to build proper IT architecture which is defendable, and also to make sure that they have proper future force which is able to defend the country. So I'll stop here. If you have some questions, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you so much, Heli. Incredible content, really sobering, strategic context, really detailed technical background as well. You've sent Slido ablaze. We'll try and get through as many of them as possible. I think this first one's an important one. So particularly here in Britain, for 200 years, every time the UK government says anything, Kremlin just comes out with, well, you hate us, you're Russia-phobic. Now, obviously, there's the invasion, clear evidence of that. But in the cyber domain, how confident are you that you can use evidence from that to say that, look, we can respond to this with actual evidence of Russian aggression in this context, in the cyber domain, as well as the obvious visual evidence from the war?
Well, we have done a lot of attributions to Russian actors in cyber domain. I think in cyber domain is more evident than any other domain that Russia is attacking all of us. So there it's a bit of no-brainer.
I suppose what's behind the question is because a lot of general policymakers, media and so on, don't really understand cyber, if we can call up the next question as well. You know, it's rather easy for them to say, well, it could be anybody and you don't know and you haven't provided evidence, etc. Do you think that the community, that you're such an important part of, that allied support community for Ukraine actually really has the evidence that we can put out there that will convince reasonable doubters? Yeah,
I think the problem with the cyber attacks is always the translation of cyber attacks to the higher echelons of the policy-making world.
Okay.
You have been in that place to be a translator. You know how difficult it is.
It's really
to explain to the Prime Minister why this hack was bad. How you explain that to the Prime Minister so that he understands, or she. And I think that's the job that we have to do, who speak both languages. We understand cyber effects and we translate that to the higher strategic level of the policy-making world.
Yeah, a really important bit about storytelling there. A bit more of an optimistic note. So you've, I think, looked a lot and came out very strongly in your presentation about the innovations Ukraine have made in multi-dimensional warfare. How can we use what they've had to do for our own security in the West, and everywhere from the Baltics to Britain, beyond? What can we learn in terms of their innovations? I think
the same, but I had just presented the terms of like Uberization of warfare or gamification of warfare. They have a couple of more of those terms. One of those is mosaic warfare. I didn't touch cloud too much, but in cloud services, they have also applied interesting new modules, which I haven't seen anywhere before. So I think they continuously come up with new interesting solutions which do not exist anywhere else, because it was very tech-savvy nation, and now they have mobilized the whole civilian sector for war effort. So their solutions, I can say, are much better than anything that the Western defense industry can put forward in coming years. So they will be having a great future after the war, also supplying those solutions for everybody else who wants.
Well, we'll come on to that in a minute, but keen to capture memorable bits of learning. There's so much content in this conference that people won't remember lots of it. So we had the flying pieces of malware last night. Can you just remind us what's meant by the Uberization of warfare in your digital translator mode?
Yeah, you are a soldier somewhere in the trenches.
Yeah.
And you see, the enemy movements, either the vehicle or a new wave of drones or new troops coming. And then you fire, you order the fire.
Right.
You order the fire. Okay. The fire can be actual artillery fire, and then the system will define which fire is close by, and which fire is quickest to reach you to save you.
Got it. Thank you. Here's a good question about self-reflection. People want to support Ukraine. What can we learn from the mistakes we've made so far? We may be in a new phase. Who knows where the US process ends up? Europe may be asked to do more, probably will be, depending on the conditions, exactly what. So what mistakes have we made in cyber, as a cybersecurity community, in our support to Ukraine, and what can we do better in future?
I think cyber community was doing a pretty good job, actually, because we really have prepared them before the second invasion very well. Okay. But certainly we should have given them maybe more staff in terms of hardware, because when we stepped into the game in end of 23, they were crying for hardware. Everybody gave them the services, training services, but no hardware. You need computers, you need end-user equipment, you need tactical communication, you need radios, you need electromagnetic warfare-proof radios, which are Silvus radios. And they are expensive, and there are not too many, in the market. So, you need everything at the same time. But of course, it's difficult to prioritize when the war just has started. Sure. But next war, I would say, we make sure that there is a warehouse with a lot of equipment too.
Yeah. So if you flood them with experts and say, we're going to train you to use this, if they don't have the stuff to use it on, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
But let's assume that that has happened, and we have the warehouse of hardware that you're talking about. What are the people-centric lessons you can share with us? So is it about leaders? Is it about specialist teams, training, even welfare? One of the things that I think we don't talk enough about is the conditions people have to work under in a war zone. Relationships integrity, of course, big issue in Ukraine at the minute. What are the lessons you've got on the people side from your experience in supporting the Ukrainians?
I think sometimes I feel that my role is, of course, to provide them with software and hardware and everything, but also to keep up their mood and to motivate and to bring them sometimes, to nice conferences, to nice rooms like this in Europe, to share the experiences, so on, to keep the kind of, to show that support is there. But it's what we can do from outside. But from what they can do from inside is to make sure that there is enough tech education for all the troops that are going to the front line, so that they are not afraid when they see the drone chasing them. They know how to fight the drone chasing them. Okay. For your information, you can't shoot easily the drone because it moves very fast. The kamikaze drone moves like 90 kilometers per hour. You cannot easily shoot that. You have to be a very good shot. And how you operate in that terrain, which is not just anymore the troops and enemy fire, but also all that tech that flies around or comes towards you, and you have to have that awareness. Also, you have to know how to use the Delta. So you have to have basic digital skills. Everybody has that in Ukraine probably, because they use it in civilian lives as well. And of course the commanders that are in Ukraine are really clever, because they have to keep their troops alive with all this, combining all the inputs and sources. And you know what they are sometimes doing? They are also delivering the paper messages. Okay. To make sure that Delta, if it's hacked in that part of the front line, they don't know, or the enemy doesn't know what they are going to do next. So people, hardware, support lessons, but overall actually a good
story from the cybersecurity community. I'm afraid, I know there are lots of other questions. That's a tribute to the quality of the content of the presentation. Heli, thank you so much indeed for coming to speak to us today. Thank you.
Thank you for inviting me.